Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jackie if you're new here. So today we're going to be talking about one of the more important astrological shifts of the year, Chiron's first entry into Taurus. And while this summer is only going to be a preview of the longer transit that's officially beginning next year, it does offer us a pretty powerful glimpse into the themes that we're going to be working with once that transit does take place. And when it does, it's 7 years long. Okay. So just a little bit about Chiron. I believe I've done videos on Chiron. I'd have to check back. It's been a minute if I haven't, but I want to just keep this specifically about Chiron and Taurus, right? For those of you who have your Chiron in Taurus and or Chiron in the second house, even if it's in another sign, that this transit's going to be especially powerful for you. So who is Chiron? Chiron, we call him the wounded healer. Wherever Chiron travels, it reveals where we carry very deep sensitivities, old wounds, vulnerabilities, but also where we have great potential for tremendous healing, wisdom, and growth. And as Chiron moves from Aries into Taurus, the focus shifts from healing wounds around identity and courage and selfhood, right? All those Aryan qualities toward healing our relationships now with Taurus, connected to money, all Taurian things, security, stability, the body, health, finances, our ability to feel more grounded and just generally safe in the world, right? So in today's video, I'm going to be walking through what this transit means collectively and then exploring how it's likely going to be impacting each of the rising signs, just so that you could better understand where this healing journey is beginning to unfold in your life. But before we dig into that, if you're new here, please take a moment to subscribe, share, click the notification bell so that you don't miss any future astrology updates. And if you do find this video helpful in any way, I'd really appreciate a comment below, because your support helps me to continue doing what I'm doing here and sharing these astrological insights with you. So let's dive in. Let's get into Chiron's journey into Taurus and explore what this next chapter of healing has in store for us. But before we do get into the sign by sign, it's just really important for us to generally understand the larger spiritual and psychological meaning of Chiron moving from Aries into Taurus. And for those of you who don't know, I do evolutionary astrology, and Chiron is the main man in evolutionary astrology because he's kind of like the core, right? It's from that core where we experience that great, I want to say wound, but it's like this narrative it's a false narrative that's established in our energy by the time we're 8 years old. And we don't have the tools in our toolbox to unpack it, right? So we end up building life on top of it. And then we end up having our Chiron return anywhere from our middle to late 40s, early 50s. Again, it is a 7-year transit. And that very early wound fissures up, and we meet it, though, through other circumstances and obviously new people and all of those things. But the whole point to Chiron returning is to teach us that it is a false narrative. And it's very important for you to understand that, particularly if you do have your Chiron in Taurus and or your Chiron in the second house. And I say that because Taurus is the landlord of the second house. So if you have it in the second house, you experience your Chiron energy through the lens of Taurus. So enough about that. But let's talk about this. Chiron has been moving through Aries since really like late 2018, bringing collective and personal wounds around identity and courage and selfhood and survival and independence and just the right to exist the way that we are. Chiron in Aries is always asking, who am I when I'm no longer trying to prove myself? Where have I been wounded in my ability to just stand up and just begin again and claim my own life, right? And so especially if you've had your Chiron return, or depending if it was in a powerful house, that could have been a very tricky transit for you, where a lot of circumstances likely have been coming up since that late 2018 into 2019. And as Chiron enters Taurus from June 19th to September 17th, we begin a new healing chapter. And this is not the full 7-year transit yet. Okay. Again, just a reminder, it's a preview. The longer one is going to be starting on April 14th, right in time for tax season of 2027. But this summer gives us our first little glimpse into the themes that we're going to be working with more deeply starting next year. Now, Taurus is connected to the body and to money and food and comfort and stability and self-worth and values, safety, pleasure. This is ruled by Venus, the nervous system, the earth, our thyroid, our relationship to receiving, being able to receive. Okay. However, Chiron in Taurus it's not only about finances and possessions or material security. Taurus is deeply connected to the health of the internal body itself. So, like I said, this includes the nervous system, the thyroid, digestion, your metabolism, hormonal balance, the throat, the sense that your body's overall ability is capable of relaxing and just being able to feel safe. Now, psychologically, Taurus governs our relationship to security, but it governs how we have that security or lack thereof, right? And how we experience it within us. So as a result, Chiron in Taurus often brings awareness to places where the body's been carrying unresolved stress and fear and grief and scarcity, hypervigilance, or even emotional wounds for years. So we can discover that certain physical symptoms or chronic tensions or exhaustion or digestive issues or nervous system issues, any sort of nervous system dysregulation, right? Or any sort of pattern of overconsumption or self-soothing and self-medicating, aka drinking a little bit too much or smoking a little too much, whatever your vices are, spending too much money, it could even be that. Any of these things that are directly connected to deeper emotional stories that we tell ourselves about safety and worthiness and trust and survival. So, in a lot of ways, Chiron and Taurus is asking not only what we believe our value is or what we do value, but where those beliefs actually live within our body. Now, Chiron and Taurus brings attention to the places where we don't feel safe enough to rest and or even receive or own our own worth or just live from a grounded place of inner security. It will be asking us to really examine our relationship with our external resources and our internal resources. Do we trust ourselves, right? Do we trust our bodies? Do we believe that life can support us? Can we receive things without feeling guilty? What does not only money, just other people? Can we rest without feeling that we have to earn it first? Right now, during the direct portion of this transit, it's not going to be direct the whole time, but during the direct portion from June 19th until Chiron stations retrograde on August 3rd, that wound is likely going to reveal itself through external circumstances. Okay, so we become a lot more aware of where we've been living in scarcity, undervaluing ourselves, over attaching to anything that's material, like material security, or it could also manifest as disconnecting from the body's needs, right? And signals, the needs and signals that we get from our body. This can bring healing around money and around self-esteem and physical presence and emotional steadiness and nervous system regulation and the ability to feel deserving of peace ultimately, right? But we have to go through this sort of introductory process first. Now, this Chiron and Taurus transit is also deeply karmic because it forms supportive aspects to the North and South node. And while that North node is in Pisces and the South node is in Virgo now until the middle of next month, Chiron and Taurus supports healing through surrender for that first month. Okay. Surrender and compassion and faith and spiritual trust and just this release from perfectionism and needing things to be a certain way, because we're learning that safety doesn't come only from control. It hardly ever comes from control or planning or fixing or doing our need to have to do everything correctly. Sometimes healing comes through softening and just kind of, I'm not going to say being lazy about something and letting something ride, but just the softening to the perfection, the need for perfection or the need for things to have to be a certain way. Then the nodes are going to be shifting into Aquarius and Leo in mid to late July, and there the story is changing, where Chiron in Taurus then begins supporting that north node in Aquarius and that south node in Leo, wherever that is. And again, I will break it out into each of the rising signs. And this is going to bring healing through community and authenticity and future vision, very Aquarian, detachment from ego-based validation, right? We're asked to release the need to be the main star, the need to be chosen, the need to be admired or personally centered in every situation, and instead move toward a more grounded contribution to the collective and really connecting with other people. When I say the collective, you were talking about with Aquarius is our friends, our networks, right? Not thinking so, not being as me centered. Now, at the same time, Chiron in Taurus squares Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. And this is one of the more intense parts of the transit because Pluto in Aquarius is exposing collective power structures, technological dependence, social systems, group dynamics, and just the ways that we give our power away to the crowd, to the algorithm, right? To the institution, or even just to the future, right? Chiron Taurus, if Chiron and Taurus squaring Pluto can reveal where our safety is being challenged by forces beyond our control right now. And this could bring up fears. It could bring up fears around money, around survival, around belonging, around bodily autonomy, social change, personal value, but it could also be profoundly empowering because it's asking us to rebuild self-worth from the inside out rather than depending on any sort of external system or external anything to tell us what we're worth, whether it's a job, a relationship, whatever it is. Now, once Chiron turns retrograde in that Taurus energy on August 3rd, the healing becomes a lot more internal, right? That retrograde period asks us to revisit the wound rather than simply react to it. So we can start to notice old stories around not having enough, not being safe enough, or not being valued enough, right? All to the surface, right? And here the body will definitely speak more loudly. The nervous system may be revealing what it's been carrying after years of fear and tension and grief or stress or self-protection, whatever, that you might have been dealing with. So this is absolutely a time to listen very carefully to what your discomfort is trying to tell you. If you're feeling, let me be a little more specific, like how it can show up. Exhaustion, really tired, midday crash. Because that that nervous system dysregulation is, our thyroid doesn't love it. So thyroid issues, energy crash, food sensitivities, inflammatory issues. These are things that, be mindful of them and don't ignore it. Because it does depend on what house you have this activating. Go to the doctor, have it checked out if you can, right? Try to adopt a little bit more of an anti-inflammatory diet if you can. That's always a good idea. Chiron and any of the earth energies, actually. No, yeah, any of the earth energies, actually. But paying attention to your mental health as well. And don't poo-poo anything or throw anything under the rug, right? Because the direct experience is likely going to show us the wound, right? The retrograde experience asks us to sit with it, just sit in that space to understand it and begin changing our relationship to it, right? While it is in that retrograde space. But because this is only a preview, we don't need to solve everything this summer, right? Instead, we're just being introduced to the themes that are going to become much more significant once Chiron moves in full blown for the longer transit in 2027. Now, this energy, Chiron and Taurus, reminds us that healing isn't only emotional or spiritual, but it is also physical. And again, I'm not looking to scare anybody here, but it lives in the body. It lives in our relationship with food and money and touch and rest and beauty, because it's ruled by Venus, and land, because it's Taurus, simplicity and peace, right? It lives in the way we regulate our stress and respond to uncertainty, to all of these things, and experiencing safety from the inside out. So this transit does ask us to reclaim the right to feel safe in our own lives. because we have the right to feel safe, right? In our own life, in our own bodies, within our own value, right? So it teaches us that that worth, because it's a Taurus second house energy, always connected to the idea of anything that's connected to the idea of worth, okay? But then that's not something that we earn through struggle. Worth is something that we remember. We have to remember worth. We have to remember to attach worth to ourselves, to our body, to the way that we're handling our finances, right? And because Taurus is the natural ruler of the second house, every rising sign will experience some version of healing around self-worth, resources, security, embodiment during this transit, right? Regardless of where it falls in your individual chart. So with that being said, I'm going to get right into our Aries rising friends, okay? So if you are an Aries rising, okay, we are talking about June 19th to September 17th. Chiron is going to be in your second house, Aries. So for you guys, this is a brief but important preview of Chiron. Around specifically, it's in the house of Taurus for you. So around money and income and possessions and self-worth and personal values and security, this placement is especially significant, right? Obviously, because Taurus is the natural ruler of the second. So he's not only moving through your house of resources, it's moving through the sign that naturally governs these themes. So you guys may feel this a little more directly and personally than the other signs. Now, since 2018, Chiron's been in your sign. It's been healing wounds connected to identity and confidence and independence and courage and the right to exist as your most authentic selves. So a lot of you have spent the past 8 years confronting questions such as who you are and are you strong enough and are you allowed to take up space and do you deserve to pursue what it is that you want? But now it's going into your second house Taurus, the focus is going to shift. So that question is no longer who am I, but instead, what do I truly value? Do I believe I deserve security and stability and abundance and peace? Psychologically, this transit will likely reveal old wounds surrounding self-worth. As a lot of you unconsciously tie your value to what you accomplish. You guys are a sign of doers, right? How productive you are or how much you can handle on your own. And with Chiron and Taurus here, you start exposing, these places are going to start to expose themselves where you might have learned that love or approval or money or security all had to be earned through struggle. It's always like a struggle. How to hustle, got to do. So you can become a lot more aware of these subtle fears surrounding your finances in general, or even receiving support, asking for help. That could be a tough one. Or trusting that life is going to provide you what it is that you need without constant effort. So this transit is not only about money, though, right? Again, Taurus is deeply connected to the physical body and the nervous system. So Chiron moving through here can bring awareness to where stress and scarcity thinking and self-criticism and survival-based habits have been stored physically in your body. So a lot of you may notice an increased sensitivity around digestion, around your eating habits, hormonal balance, physical tension, exhaustion, sleep patterns, nervous system regulation, right? Because your body's beginning to communicate what your mind has been ignoring, right? Now, one of the deeper lessons is learning the difference between survival and feeling safe. Because a lot of you know how to survive, for goodness sake, you're an Aries rising, right? You know how to push through obstacles and solve problems and just keep moving it forward. But Chiron asks you some uncomfortable questions here. Can you allow yourself to feel supported? Can you receive without feeling guilty? And can you rest and just chill and feel secure without feeling like you have to earn it first? And earn it. Now, I'm not talking about going out and working for it, but earning it through, in one way or another, being an even better version of yourself, as though you're not worthy of that level. Now, during the direct phase from the 19th of June till August 3rd, circumstances can highlight areas where your relationship with security needs a little bit of attention. So don't be surprised if there are like just financial concerns. It doesn't mean that it's all falling apart. There could be concerns, question about pricing your work, especially if you're in the service business, issues involving self-esteem or realization about how much you give versus receive could emerge here. And that could even just be transactional in a relationship. Now, these experiences aren't necessarily problems, but they're mirrors showing you where healing wants to occur. Looking at how much do you give and receive in relationship? How much do you give and receive when it comes to your money? And any of those second house things. Now, at the same time, Chiron is sextiling the North Node of Pisces in your 12th while trining the South Node of Virgo in your 6th. So this suggests to me that part of your healing comes through releasing the belief that everything has to be controlled and fixed and analyzed or even managed. Because you're being encouraged to trust your intuition here more deeply and to soften in that space, soften some of that hypervigilance that may have developed over the years. Healing can come through spiritual practices like prayer and meditation and therapy, any kind of dream work, if you're open to that, rest, or just simply allowing yourself more quiet time. Now, when the nodes shift into Aquarius and Leo in mid-July, the focus changes. Chiron begins supporting the North Node in Aquarius in your 11th house of friends and community and networks and future, your goals and gains. Very future-oriented energy. So you may begin realizing that you don't have to build your life entirely on your own. Supportive friendships and collaborations or groups or communities can become a great part of your healing process. So learning to receive support from others may become just as important as providing support yourself, right? Now, through this entire period, Chiron squares Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in your 11th house. So this is where a lot of the psychological growth is going to be happening. Pluto is transforming your relationship to groups and friendships, and if it's relevant, audiences, social networks, just any sort of like collective spaces with other people. Now, some of you may discover that you have unconsciously based a lot of your self-worth on some sort of external validation or approval or popularity or any sense of the need to belong. And others of you may realize that you've given away too much power to the opinions of other people. And this square asks you to examine where your sense of value comes from, right? Is it determined by what you own, by what you earn, by what other people think of you, or does it come from something that's just deeper and more stable? Now, when Chiron goes retrograde on the 3rd of August, the healing becomes more internal. So this is when the old beliefs about money, worthiness, security, receiving, all of that, the deserving, all rise to the surface for you to look at it. And memories are going to be joining it. So memories, emotional patterns, long-standing fears, ultimately are going to be revealing themselves. Now, the retrograde period is less about changing external circumstances. It's just more about just understanding the emotional roots underneath them. And because this is only a preview, this transit begins again in April of 2027. You don't have to solve it all. Instead, this summer is just offering you some clues, right? Pay attention to whatever themes repeatedly emerge around money, self-esteem, receiving, your physical well-being, your relationship with security. These are likely the very areas that Chiron is going to be helping you heal over these coming years. And the deepest lesson for you guys is likely going to be that your worth is not determined by how hard you fight, how much you achieve, or how much you can carry alone. Because Chiron and Taurus is asking you to discover a much more grounded truth that you are valuable simply because you exist. And true security, it really does just begin within yourself. Okay, my friend. So I hope that was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Taurus. Yes. So it's in your sign. So from June 19th to September 17th, this is going to be one of the most personal and significant previews of the whole cycle because It's going into your house of identity and self-image and physical body confidence, your personal development. This is not simply a transit that happens around you. This is a transit that's happening within you. And since 2018, it's been Chiron that has been in Aries, right? Moving through your 12th house, very quietly working beneath the surface. So a lot of you have spent the past several years confronting unconscious fears, old grief, self-sabotaging patterns, hidden anxieties, and just these wounds that were not always visible to the outside world, right? There's been a great deal of healing taking place behind the scenes for you guys, even if you couldn't always articulate what it was that was changing, right? Now, as Chiron goes into your sign, the healing emerges into the light. So psychologically, this transit begins asking some real identity questions, right? Who are you becoming? How do you see yourself? What parts of yourself have you rejected or hidden or criticized or judged? Are you living as the person you truly are or as the person that other people expect you to be? Getting very real with these questions and just taking this summer to think about these things. And because Taurus does govern the physical body and the relationship with stability, a lot of you may become more aware of how emotional experiences have been carried physically for you. So this transit often brings heightened awareness to the body's messages. So the nervous system, digestion, hormonal balance, energy levels, eating patterns, sleep, throat related issues, and overall physical well being may become very important messengers throughout this process. You want to make sure that you're not ignoring any of those things, okay? Now, you may notice that emotional stress affects your body more quickly than it once did. Okay. Now, conversely, you might discover that that healing your body helps to heal your emotional life as well. Because Chiron and Taurus teaches that emotional wounds and physical well-being are very interconnected. Now, for some Taurus risings, issues involving self-confidence, aging, appearance, weight, health, attractiveness, visibility, or even just self-acceptance may come to the forefront. This is not because there's something wrong with you, okay? It's because Chiron is asking you to examine where you've been defining yourself through criticism instead of through compassion. Now, the direct phase from June 19th until August 3rd, through August 3rd, may bring experiences that highlight how it is that you view yourself. So you may become more conscious of old insecurities or limiting beliefs or identity patterns, even that just no longer fit who it is that you're becoming. And some of you may feel unusually vulnerable during this time, while others of you may feel an unexpected desire to just reinvent certain aspects of your life. That happens a lot. I just went through a lot of my Aries rising clients went through that when Chiron was in Aries. Now, at the beginning of the transit, Chiron forms a supportive sextile to the North Node in Pisces in your 11th, while trining the South Node in Virgo in your 5th. And this does suggest that healing comes through community, friendship, shared dreams, allowing yourself to belong without having to do anything, without having to perform or be on. So you may be releasing old patterns of seeking validation through achievement or romance, fifth house, creativity, or being everything to everyone, right? Instead, you're learning that authentic connection often begins when you stop trying so hard to earn people's approval, right? Now, when the nodes shift into Aquarius and Leo in the middle of next month, the focus evolves, right? It changes. Chiron starts supporting the North Node in Aquarius in your 10th house of career and purpose and visibility, public identity, your long-term plans, the status of your most important relationships. So as your personal healing deepens, your professional life may begin reflecting those changes, or your long-term plans may be reflecting those changes. So you might start questioning whether your career truly reflects your values, your gifts, or even your authentic self, or what you've been planning for yourself for the long term? Is it actually what you still want? Now, at the same time, Chiron is squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in your 10th throughout this preview period, right? So this is one of the most important dynamics of this transit, in my view, right? Because it's activated, right? So Pluto is transforming your relationships with authority, success, ambition, reputation, public visibility, mother energy as well is in there. So you might find yourself confronting fears in that space about failure or recognition or leadership or how other people perceive you, or not being able to have that life that you were thinking about, right? And some of you may experience power struggles within that space with mother energy, with authority figures, with employers, institutions, or just even your own internal expectations of success. Now, psychologically, the square between Chiron and Pluto is asking you to examine whether your sense of identity has become overly dependent upon achievement and reputation or external validation, how things are supposed to be according to other people, right? And it invites you to discover who you are underneath all of that, underneath the title and the accomplishment or any of the roles, fill in the blank, right? Any of the roles that you've carried. Now, when Chiron stations retrograde on the 3rd, August 3rd, the healing process becomes more introspective here. This period may bring old memories and insecurities or identity wounds to the surface. You may become more aware of where self-doubt originated and how long certain beliefs about yourself have been influencing the decisions that you've been making in your life. Now, this retrograde period is not asking you to fix yourself, okay? There's nothing wrong with you. In fact, one of the greatest lessons of Chiron in the first is realizing that healing doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from accepting the parts of yourself that you've spent years trying to improve or hide or overcome. And because this is only a preview of the 7-year Chiron and Taurus journey, that's again officially beginning April of 2027, pay close attention to the themes that show up this summer. Notice what triggers your insecurity or which strengthens your confidence, right? Or what your body is trying to tell you and where you're being called to develop a greater or a higher level of self-acceptance. The deepest lesson for you guys may be that true confidence doesn't come from fixing every perceived flaw. It comes from developing a relationship with yourself that's rooted in compassion and authenticity and trust, right? This energy, this Chiron and Taurus is beginning a long process of teaching you that your worth was never something you needed to earn. You never did. It was something that you had the entire time. You've possessed it all along. Okay, my friends, I hope that was helpful for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. See you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hey, Gem. So Chiron is going through the 12th house for you guys, for Gem risings. So from June 19th to September 17th, we're having a little bit of a preview here, right? And it begins a much quieter and more internal healing process than a lot of the other rising signs are going to experience. So Chiron goes into the 12th house of the subconscious, of hidden wounds, spiritual growth, endings, healing, retreat, sleep, solitude, the parts of yourself that typically operate behind the scenes, right? The 12th house, it's like the house that sits behind the curtain, right? Now, since 2018, Chiron in Aries has been moving through your 11th house, helping you heal wounds connected to friendship and belonging and community, your social circles, and your hopes for the future. Now, a lot of you have spent the past several years questioning where you fit in, who are your real friends, and whether you feel accepted for who you really are. And now the focus is going to shift inward. Rather than asking, where do you belong? Chiron in there is going to be asking, what's beneath the surface that prevents me from feeling safe and supported and just at peace with myself, right? So psychologically, this could be one of the deepest healing transits because that 12th house governs material that is typically dug down deep and very unconscious. So old fears and forgotten memories and hidden grief, unresolved disappointments, ancestral patterns, self-sabotaging behaviors, and even long-standing emotional wounds can gradually emerge from healing. And a lot of you might even be feeling this already just because of Chiron being in that last decan in Aries already. He's already dipping in to that Taurian energy already. So this doesn't necessarily mean dramatic events are going to occur. In fact, most of you are going to find that the most important developments are going to be happening internally. Dreams become a lot more lively, more meaningful. Your intuition becomes very strong with Chiron in the 12th house. Emotional patterns that once seemed invisible can suddenly become very obvious. You start recognizing emotional patterns that you have. And you're noticing it. It's not even like anybody else is noticing it. It's just going to be like realizing, wow, I do that, right? And because Chiron is moving through Taurus, the healing is not only psychological, it's deeply connected to the body, because Taurus governs the body's relationship with safety and regulation and nourishment and stability, and the nervous system and digestion and hormonal balance and sleep patterns for you guys, stress responses, your eating habits, the throat, sensory experience. These can become very important messengers during this transit. A lot of you guys are going to be discovering that emotional wounds that you thought were in the past are still being carried physically. And so how does it show up, right? Anxiety can show up in the digestive system because what opposes the 12th house, the 6th house? None of the houses work alone, right? 12th house, 6th house, house 1 and 7, 2 and 8, 3, 9, 4, 10, 5, 11, right? So whatever's happening across the wheel, across our energy, we're going to be feeling that, right? So yeah, you see your digestive system might be a little wonky. Grief can show up as exhaustion. And grief doesn't only have to be for like the passing away of somebody. It could just be the realization that we're needing to put some sort of reality or some sort of desire to rest. For a lot of you, long-term stress can reveal itself just through general tension or sleep disruption or some sort of nervous system dysregulation. Again, because remember, the 6th house is the house of health, mental, physical, and emotional. So it's sitting across there. And the 12th house, Pisces is the landlord with Neptune as the ruler there. It's the house of disease and dis-ease. So it doesn't mean that you're all going to be getting sick, but it's dis-ease as well, right? Anything that's potentially lingering is going to come up to the top, right? And Chiron in there is asking you to really listen to what your body has been trying to communicate with you all along and what needs to be healed. Now, one of the most important lessons of this transit involves learning the difference between thinking about healing and actually experiencing healing. Right? Because I'm a Gemini sun, we do a lot of talking about stuff in a very articulate way, right? But then that's not the same thing as doing it, right? So Gemini energy often processes life through the mind, right? And Chiron is very somatic. Chiron and Taurus is a very somatic energy. It's asking you to move from the mind into the body. So rather than analyzing every feeling, you might be called to just slow down enough to experience things, experience the feeling, right? Now, during the direct phase from June 19th to August 3rd, situations can show themselves, right? Having to do with hidden emotional patterns that have been quietly influencing your decisions, right? You may become a lot more aware of fears around security and trust and abandonment and self-worth, or even the fear of support, right? Because then I might not have control, right? So the purpose isn't to overwhelm you, but it's just to make unconscious material conscious and to really start thinking about it this summer. At the start of the transit, Chiron forms a very supportive sextile to the North Node of Pisces in your 10th, while trining the South Node of Virgo in your 4th. So this suggests that healing old emotional patterns can directly support your career, your purpose, your public life. You might figure out that certain fears rooted in childhood, family conditioning, or even past experiences have quietly influenced your professional choices for years and years, okay? It's just realizing these things. The South Node in Virgo in your 4th may also be helping you to release old family expectations or perfectionist type of conditioning or beliefs around what safety is supposed to even look like. And healing can require some redefining here. What especially around what home actually means to you emotionally, not just physically, but emotionally. What are you feeling in there? Now, when the nodes shift into Aquarius and Leo next month in mid-July, Chiron starts to support the North Node in Aquarius in your ninth house of all ninth house. What is that? Manifestation of father energy, higher learning, spirituality, organized or otherwise, wisdom, travel, teaching, publishing, but it's the house of your personal truth. And as your healing deepens, your worldview may begin changing as well. So you can start questioning old beliefs and old narratives and even old definitions of success and purpose, faith, your politics, just your worldview. And throughout the entire transit, Chiron is going to be squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in that ninth house as well. So there's a lot of transformation that's going to be going on there. Now, Pluto's asking you to evolve in that space, intellectually, spiritually, philosophically. So you might find yourself confronting belief systems that just no longer resonate with you. And some of you may experience a crisis of faith. Others of you, you might get really into reading and learning more about new philosophies or learning new higher level thinking types of things. So some of you may literally go back to school, but you don't have to go back to school to learn the higher level. Maybe taking a workshop or webinar, whatever it is, getting more deeply or handling differently your spiritual practices or just the way that you understand life. Now, the tension between Chiron and Pluto can reveal where certain beliefs have been controlling your sense of safety. So you might discover that some of your deepest fears are connected to what you believe about life itself. Is it fair? Is it unfair? Is it just a struggle? Is it glorious? Whatever it is, right? Now, when Chiron stations retrograde on August 3rd, the healing becomes a lot more internal. Whenever we have the retrogrades, it manifests very internally. So old memories or recurring dreams in the 12th house, emotional patterns and subconscious fears can become a lot more noticeable. This is not a time to force answers. It's not this summer. Just observe, reflect, develop a lot of compassion for yourself. The retrograde period can also show you where you've been carrying emotional burdens that don't actually even belong to you. Some of you might uncover family patterns or inherited fears or unconscious beliefs that have been operating in the background for years. Now, because this is only a preview of the longer Chiron and Taurus cycle, which again is beginning mid-April of 2027, you're not expected to figure everything out this summer. Just pay attention to the themes that come up. Notice what repeatedly seeks your attention. Notice where your body is speaking louder than your mind. Notice these things. What requires rest, compassion, forgiveness, release, right? And it's the repetition of things coming back around that you can't quite shake. You don't even have to do any work for it, right? It's just going to happen, right? All you have to do is observe and have a lot of compassion for yourself. The deepest lesson here for you guys is going to be that healing isn't always found through understanding. It's just not. Sometimes healing is found best through surrender. And Chiron and Taurus is beginning a long journey of teaching you that true safety comes not from having all the answers, but from developing trust in yourself and in your body and the wisdom that exists beneath the noise of the mind. Okay, my friends. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. All right, Cancer rising to a lesser degree, Sun and Moon. For you guys, Chiron and Taurus from June 19th to September 17th is happening in your 11th house. Now, for you guys, this begins a real healing journey connected to 11th house things, friendships, community, social circles, professional networks, audiences, long-term goals and gains, your sense of belonging in the world. What else is 11th house? Daughter-in-law, son-in-law, stepchildren, grandchildren. Yeah, those are other energies that are in here, right? Now, that 11th house is it's really the people we surround ourselves with, right? The groups we participate in and the dreams that we hope to build for the future, because it's that 11th house. The landlord is Aquarius, but the natural landlord is Aquarius. ruled by Uranus, right? So it's very connected to the future, especially the next 10 to 15 years. Now, since 2018, Chiron in Aries has been moving through your 10th house of career and purpose and reputation and visibility and achievement. So a lot of you have spent the past 8 years or so, it's usually a 7-year transit, but we have to factor in the retrogrades and everything, but spent these past 8 years confronting wounds surrounding success, recognition, authority figures, leadership, mother energy, and questions about whether you are truly living your purpose, right? There may have been periods of professional growth accompanied by equally significant periods of self-doubt. Could have been both. Now that focus shifts away from that 10th house and moves away from what you're building towards what you're building it with, right? Which is more that 11th house. Now, psychologically, Chiron in the 11th offers a lot. I like the 11th house. You guys will be dealing with it a little in a lot more gentle manner than a lot of the other signs, but it is going to reveal wounds around belonging. So you may become more aware of places where you have felt excluded or misunderstood or overlooked or judged or disconnected from others. And a lot of you may recognize patterns of keeping people at a distance just to avoid disappointment. Some of you will. Others of you may realize that you've spent years trying to fit into groups and communities that never truly reflected who you are at all, right? And at its core, this is asking you if you feel safe being yourself within a group. Do you feel safe being yourself with your friends? Whoever it is that you're dealing with. And because Chiron is moving through Taurus, the healing process is deeply connected to emotional and physical safety. As Taurus reminds us that belonging is not just a social experience. It's something that's felt within the body, right? No man is an island, right? When we feel accepted, the nervous system relaxes. And when we feel rejected or unsafe, the body often stores those experiences through anxiety and tension and hypervigilance and digestive issues, exhaustion, emotional withdrawal. Now, throughout this transit, a lot of you will become aware of how social experiences have affected your well-being. You might notice that certain people or groups or friendships or environments just leave you feeling either energized or completely exhausted, depleted, right? Who's charging your energy, who's charging your battery, who's draining your battery, right? This Chiron in Taurus is asking you very much to pay attention to these signals, okay? Now, the direct phase from June 19th to August 3rd may bring circumstances that reveal where the healing is needed. So old friendship wounds can surface. You may outgrow certain social circles. Some of you may experience shifts within your communities or your organizations or your professional groups or online spaces. Others may begin recognizing that you've been holding yourself back from pursuing some kind of meaningful goal because you feared criticism or rejection or failure. Now, at the beginning of the transit, Chiron forms a very supportive sextile to the North Node in Pisces in your 9th house, while also trining the South Node in Virgo in your 3rd. So this suggests to me that healing is likely going to be coming through expanding your perspective. So education, spirituality, organized or otherwise, travel, teaching, publishing, exposure to new ideas that may help move you beyond limiting your beliefs about where it is that you belong, right? Any sort of higher learning as well. Now, that South Node in Virgo in the 3rd can also help you release some old mental habits that keep you small. Right? A lot of you may discover that self-criticism or overthinking and people-pleasing or worrying about others' opinions has contributed to you feeling isolated. Now, when the nodes shift into Aquarius and Leo next month, in the middle of next month in July, Chiron begins supporting that North Node in Aquarius in your 8th house while trining the South Node in Leo in your 2nd house. So the healing now becomes a lot more deeper, far more intimate. So you can begin experiencing things like recognizing your relationship to trust needs to be looked at, vulnerability, emotional intimacy, shared resources, Anything where there's an emotional entanglement, that's very that eighth house. And the question becomes, can you allow others to truly know you? Can you receive support instead of carrying everything alone? Because you could feel like that, you've been carrying everything alone. And this shift can feel especially important for you guys who often carry tremendous emotional responsibility for other people. Chiron in Taurus starts teaching that genuine connection requires vulnerability, not just caretaking. And through this entire preview this summer, Chiron eighth house. So this is where a much deeper transformation occurs. And Pluto's going to be in Aquarius for another 18 years. So through pretty much the entire transit, it's going to be squaring issues involving trust and intimacy and emotional dependency, shared finances, psychological control, deep emotional attachment. So some of you can find yourselves confronting fears of betrayal, abandonment, loss, emotional exposure. Others can become aware of power dynamics within friendships or relationships, family systems, or professional collaborations. Yeah. Sorry, just I had to think about that for a minute. But psychologically, this square between Chiron and Pluto is really asking you to look at whether old wounds around trust have influenced your ability to truly connect to other people. Because you can realize that these fears that you developed a really long time ago are still shaping your present day relationships. And when Chiron stations retrograde on August 3rd, all that healing process turns inward. So this is when old social wounds, disappointments, fears of rejection, or memories connected to belonging become a lot more apparent. And you're just being asked to reflect. You're not being asked to do anything. There's no action connected with this summer, but it's about reflecting. And you will likely find yourself reconsidering who truly supports you in your life. Where do you feel accepted, and what kind of future you genuinely want to build? This is not about forcing yourself into communities that no longer fit. It's about recognizing where authentic connection already exists and then allowing yourself to receive it. And because this is only a preview of that longer cycle that's starting in the middle of August of 2027, please pay attention to the themes that show up this summer. Notice where you feel safe and where you don't feel safe. Pay attention to which relationships nourish your nervous system and which ones you leave feeling super tense. Pay attention to where you're being invited to trust and connect and just belong more deeply. Now, the deepest lesson for you guys is likely that the understanding that true belonging, really belonging, is not something that you earn by taking care of everybody else, by people pleasing, or how can I help you? That comes very naturally for you guys, but it's something that you experience when you allow yourself to be fully seen and fully accepted and fully valued for who you are. Because Chiron going through Taurus starts teaching that all the right people, communities, and even dreams for your future will never require you to abandon yourself in order for you to belong. Okay, my friend. So I hope that helps in some way. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Leo Rising. I hope you guys are doing amazing today. So we have this Chiron and Taurus that's transiting your 10th house. This little preview from June 19th to September 17th of 2026. And for you guys, this begins a healing journey that's connected to 10th house things: your career, public reputation, standing in the world, your purpose. It's the most visible house. It's connected to achievement and leadership, your relationship to success. But it is even more simply just your long-term path, right? What it is that you want for the rest of your life. 10th house is also connected to mother energy as well. So Chiron going in there, definitely one of the most public and visible sectors of your chart, brings attention to how you define accomplishment and how comfortable you feel stepping into your authority. Now, since 2018, Chiron in Aries has been moving through your ninth house of father energy, beliefs, higher education, spirituality, teaching, religion, organized or otherwise, travel, your personal truth, politics, your worldview. So a lot of you have spent these past 8 years questioning what you believe, redefining your worldview, and healing wounds connected to faith and knowledge and expertise and trusting your own wisdom. You may have discovered that some beliefs you once held no longer fit who you're becoming, right? By the way, the ninth house is also very connected to foreign land, foreign cultures. So connections to foreign entities also, foreign people from other cultures could have come under scrutiny as well in your own experience. Now, the focus is shifting from what you believe to what you're building. 10th house is about building. So psychologically, Chiron in the 10th will be exposing wounds surrounding all of these 10th house ideas like recognition and success and achievement and authority and visibility. Now, some of you may discover lingering fears about being judged, criticized, rejected, or just not being good enough despite years of accomplishment. Others of you can become aware that you have ultimately tied your self-worth too closely to professional success, external validation, or how other people perceive you. Okay. Now, at its core, Chiron in the 10th is asking who you are, constantly trying to prove yourself to be through achievement, through plans. Now, I want to do a little aside here because not everybody's working. 10th house is also the manifestation of mother energy. So applying any of these questions to mother energy, if that's relevant, it could also be to the status and standing of your marriage, of your long-term goals, right? And tying your path to your sense of self and your self-esteem. And because Chiron is moving through Taurus, the healing extends beyond career and long-term plans and all of those things and into your relationship with security itself. Because Taurus governs not only money, but stability, of course, but it's very somatic. Also the physical body, the nervous system, digestion, hormones, the throat. It's the way the body processes stress. So a lot of you begin noticing how professional pressure or responsibility or overwork, just generally in your life, or perfectionism affects your physical well-being, really just wanting something to be a certain way. Right? And you might discover that your body's been carrying the weight of expectations so much longer than you realize. So stress can show itself here through exhaustion and tension and sleep disruptions and digestive issues and burnout, just straight up burnout, any kind of nervous system dysregulation, or is having a really hard time relaxing. Chiron and Taurus is asking you to examine this and whether your definition of success supports your well-being or does it undermine it? Because there might have to be some changes made there. Now, the direct phase from June 19th to August 3rd can bring circumstances that highlight questions surrounding the idea of purpose and professional identity. So some of you might just straight up be reevaluating your career goals or what it is that you want for the rest of your life. And it's an angular house, the 10th house, right? So it's action. We need to have some action here. Others of you might just be questioning if the path that you're on genuinely reflects your values and what it is that you are looking for in life, right? But recognition can arrive for a lot of you, while others may encounter situations that reveal insecurities that you didn't realize were still present. Because wherever Chiron transits, we end up meeting people in situations that end up highlighting the wound that Chiron represents, right? So we can meet this in the 10th house through other people. Now, at the beginning of the transit, Chiron does form a supportive sextile to the North Node of Pisces in your 8th house, while trining the South Node in Virgo in your 2nd. Now, this is pretty significant because it's just healing around success may require a much deeper examination of trust, of vulnerability, of emotional security, of shared resources, of emotional entanglement, sexuality, and how these connect to your sense of self-worth, right? Because they're like pumping in an interesting triangle here. Now that South Node in Virgo in your 2nd is encouraging you to release excessive self-reliance or over-analysis around money, right? And the belief system that security can only come from controlling every detail or just the worrying about money. Just pull it back a little bit, right? Because that North Node in Pisces is really wanting you to trust that life's unfolding more deeply and to recognize that true abundance involves allowing support and collaboration and emotional connection to life. But that collaboration may not be exactly the way that you have wanted it to be. So there may need to be some recalibrating in that area. Now, when the nodes shift into Aquarius and Leo in the middle of July next month, Chiron starts supporting that North Node in Aquarius in your seventh, while trining the South Node in Leo in your first. Again, more angular house activity. And this changes the focus considerably because the healing now begins moving forward towards partnerships and relationships and clients and collaborators, significant one-on-one connections, your boss, your bosses, your energetic output at work. Now, you might discover that your growth depends not only on what you accomplish independently, but also on your ability to work alongside other people, right? And I mean, in relationship, it could be in your marriage, it could be in work, whatever it is. So for a lot of you, this period can highlight the balance between your personal identity, who you are, what you believe, and partnership. Again, whether it's a romantic connection, a best friend, a boss, business partners, whatever it is, right? Now, at the same time, the South Node is moving into Leo in your first house. This can encourage you to release old patterns of carrying everything alone or feeling like you always have to be the strong one or the leader or the person with all the answers, bringing everything to the table, right? This is absolutely going to be happening there, right? Because the South Node, keep in mind, South Node is not about it's not about releasing, like letting go. Because a lot of people like, oh, South Node and Leo, letting go of my happiness, letting go of my creativity. No. It's more about reframing it, recognizing that things need to be reframed. But I'm going to do a separate video on that once the nodes go in. But it's nobody's losing anything here, okay? But throughout this entire preview period, when it comes to this summer with this Chiron and Taurus, Chiron is squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in your seventh. So this is where some of the most profound psychological work is going to be going down for you guys. And Pluto is transforming your relationship sector. A lot of you probably are feeling it already, bringing very deep changes to partnerships, marriages, client relationships, collaboration, significant interpersonal dynamics. And some of you may encounter power struggles or a shift in relationship roles or intense experiences that show these hidden fears around dependence and compromise and trust or even vulnerability. Now, psychologically, that Chiron Pluto square asks you to examine whether your sense of professional value has become overly dependent on how others respond to you. Are you looking for validation through achievement because you fear rejection? Or are you maybe measuring your worth through recognition rather than authenticity? To just seeds to think about. Now, for a lot of you, this transit may expose the way in which your relationship really mirrors the seventh house is always the house of mirrors, but how it really mirrors these deeper insecurities about success and visibility and self-worth. Because when Chiron stations retrograde on August 3rd, that healing process, it all goes inward. So old memories involving authority figures, parents, teachers, bosses, mentors, past career disappointments can all rise to the surface. And you might begin recognizing where certain fears around failure or judgment originated. Right now, that retrograde phase invites you to reflect, as all retrograde phases do, but it's asking you specifically to reconsider your relationship with success and accomplishment and recognition and responsibility, right? Because you're likely going to be realizing that some goals they no longer reflect who you are and your values, while others become a lot more meaningful. And because this is only a preview of the longer Chiron in Taurus transit, which is beginning, I think it's April 14th, right, of 2027, you just want to pay attention to what comes up this summer, right? Pay attention to what triggers insecurity around visibility, leadership, achievement, your long-term plans. Notice where and how your body responds to the stress, and notice which ambitions energize you and which ones drain you. Pay attention to like how you feel, even when you're just thinking about something. Now, the deeper lesson for you guys is that true success is not measured by status. It's not. It's not measured by titles, recognition, applause. It's not. It's measured by alignment. Because this Chiron in Taurus begins teaching you that your value doesn't increase when others acknowledge it. And it doesn't decrease when they fail to do so either. Your worth is not something you achieve, it's something that you embody, right? Taurus. So the more you learn to honor that truth, the much more authentic your purpose becomes, and it becomes a lot more obvious to you. All right, my friends. So hopefully that was helpful. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. See you next time. Bye bye. Hi, Virgo Rising. I hope you guys are doing great today. You have Chiron and Taurus in your ninth house. So remember, from June 19th to September 17th, that's when this is going to be going down. And for you guys, this is beginning a healing journey connected to all ninth house things. That would be your belief system, your religion, organized or otherwise, spirituality, higher education, teaching, publishing, marketing, advertising, travel, your worldview, life philosophy, search for meaning. Now, Chiron moves into your ninth house, asking you to examine not only what you believe, but why you believe it. Okay. Ninth house is also father energy as well. The Chiron is the wounded warrior, so we want to make sure that dad's okay, right? Now, since 2018, Chiron in Aries has been moving through your eighth house of transformation, intimacy, trust, vulnerability, debt, taxes, shared resources, grief, psychological healing, any kind of emotional entanglement. And a lot of you have spent the past 8 years confronting a lot of life's deeper emotional areas, issues surrounding trust and loss and dependency and emotional exposure and personal transformation. This may have required tremendous growth and courage, right? Some of you maybe even had the passing away of a partner, okay, in that eighth house. And if you did, I'm so sorry. And that can show up with that energy. But now the focus is shifting from that emotional healing to philosophical healing. Psychologically, Chiron in the ninth often exposes wounds surrounding truth, the reality of a situation, faith, wisdom, and just trusting in the fact that life is unfolding regardless of what we do. So some of you may be in questioning long-held beliefs about spirituality and religion and education and what success actually means and your purpose, or just even understanding yourself. Others of you may have spent years seeking certainty in situations where certainty simply did not exist. And you're realizing all of this because at its core, at its central core, this energy is asking what you believe when life refuses to give you all the answers. It's the house of faith here, right? So for you guys, this could be particularly profound because Virgo naturally seeks understanding, right? You guys are ruled by Mercury. You want to understand things, right? You like order, you like logic, you like practical solutions, right? And Chiron and Taurus is asking you to develop a different kind of wisdom, one that's rooted not in overanalysis, but in trust. And that could be really difficult for you, right? With Chiron in the eighth, the whole trust thing might have been a real challenge. And because Chiron is moving through Taurus, this healing process is deeply connected to the body. Taurus governs, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the nervous system, digestion, hormones, metabolism, the throat, the senses, the body's relationship to safety and regulation. So throughout this transit, a lot of you may discover that your physical well-being is closely tied to your mental and your emotional state. So worry, overthinking, perfectionism, chronic stress often have physical consequences. And Chiron and Taurus can reveal where the body's been carrying the weight of excessive responsibility, unrealistic expectations, or even the need to always have everything figured out. Now, some of you may become more aware of your digestive sensitivities or nervous system exhaustion, stress-related symptoms, or the way that the body responds when it no longer feels safe. Now, this transit is asking you to think about this and consider that healing may not come from finding the perfect answer, but instead from developing a deeper relationship with trust, and intuition and in wisdom. Now, during the phase from June 19th to August 3rd, circumstances encourage you to question assumptions that you've held for many years. Educational opportunities for some of you, travel experiences, spiritual exploration, teaching opportunities, books, mentors, or conversations may challenge your perspective in meaningful ways. So some of you may feel very drawn to new studies or discover that old beliefs are no longer supporting your growth, right? Now, at the beginning of the transit, Chiron forms a very supportive sextile to the North Node in Pisces in your seventh, while trining the South Node of Virgo in your first, obviously in your energy. That's where that South Node is. And this is particularly important configuration for you guys, because that South Node is in your sign, helping you right now to actively release old patterns of excessive self-reliance, self-criticism, perfectionism, and the tendency to believe that you have to carry everything alone. Meanwhile, the North Node in Pisces is encouraging greater trust and compassion and faith and emotional connection and openness within relationships. And not only marriage, it could even be people at work. It could be your boss, your bosses. Seventh house is not only it's not only marriage, it's people who we have some sort of shared soul purpose with as well. But partnerships may become powerful teachers during this time for a lot of you. Significant people may challenge your assumptions and expand your perspectives or help you see yourself in a new light. Now, when the nodes shift into Aquarius and Leo in the middle of July next month, Chiron starts supporting that North Node in Aquarius in your sixth house while trining the South Node in your 12th. So the focus now moves towards daily life and health and work and routines and assure overall well-being, right? It's your home, right? It's that sixth house home. So you may begin realizing that your beliefs directly shape your habits. The stories that you tell yourself about being productive and responsible and successful and service may be reflected in your physical health and your daily experience. So healing can come through creating routines that support your nervous system rather than depleting it. And if you've been on overdrive trying to carry everything, just trying to do too many, have it, your plate is just too full, your body is going to start responding to that. Okay. So just pay attention to it. Now, through this whole preview period, Chiron is going to be squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in that sixth house. And this is one of the more psychologically significant aspects of this transit for you, because Pluto is transforming your relationship with work and health and productivity and responsibility and daily routines, right? So some of you may become very aware of areas where you've pushed yourself beyond your healthy limits. Others of you may confront these fears surrounding usefulness and competence and aging and physical wellness or control. And it's okay. It's okay. All of this is coming up to be healed. Now, psychologically, this Chiron Pluto square asks whether some of your beliefs are creating unnecessary pressure. Are you constantly going? Are you constantly trying to earn your worth through productivity? Do you feel guilty when you rest? Do you believe that your value comes from what you do rather than who you are? And these are the kinds of questions that can come up throughout this transit, right? And when Chiron stations retrograde on August 3rd, the healing becomes a lot more internal. So old beliefs and educational experiences, religious conditioning, family teaching, old personal disappointments, all these things come up for review. And you start to notice where certain fears originated and how they ended up shaping your worldview. So this period encourages reflection rather than certainty. You might not have all the answers. It's so not going to happen for this summer. And don't worry about that, right? This is just all part of the lesson, because Chiron in Taurus teaches that wisdom often develops when we stop trying to force life into these neat little categories and instead learn to trust our own experiences here. And because this is only a preview of the longer Chiron and Taurus transit, which starts August 14th of 2027, pay close attention to the themes that come up this summer. Really open yourself up to noticing what challenges your beliefs. Pay attention to where your body responds to stress and how. Was it your digestion? Is it dysregulation of your nervous system, where you're having a lot of anxiety. Notice where your mind wants certainty and where life is asking for trust, because you're sure to find a place where that's happening. Now, the deepest lesson for you guys is that healing does not always come through fixing. A lot of times it comes through allowing. And Chiron and Taurus begins teaching you that not every question is meant to be solved immediately. Some are meant to be lived and experienced and gradually understood through the wisdom of the body, the heart, and just the journey itself. Okay. So just lightening up on yourself a little bit, Virgo, right? Just lightening up a little bit on yourself, going all the way. All right. I hope this was helpful, my friends. See you next time. Bye-bye. Hey, Libra Rising, for you guys, Chiron and Taurus is transiting your 8th house. So from June 19th to September 17th, we're getting a little bit of a preview. And this is going to begin a healing journey through one of the deepest and most psychologically complex houses in the chart. Chiron moves into that 8th house, which represents your intimacy, trust, vulnerability, shared resources, debt, taxes, other people's money, inheritance, insurance payouts, emotional bonding, loss, transformation, and the hidden layer of the psyche. Now, since 2018, Chiron and Aries has been moving through your 7th house of relationships and partnership and marriage and significant one-on-one connection. So a lot of you have spent these past 8 years healing wounds connected to relationships, learning important lessons about boundaries and reciprocity and trust, and what it means to compromise and what healthy partnership truly looks like. Now the focus is shifting from relationship itself to what happens beneath the relationship. Now, psychologically, the 8th house is where we store our deepest fears and our greatest potential for transformation. And Chiron going in there will reveal wounds connected to trust and betrayal and abandonment and emotional exposure and dependency and control and loss and vulnerability. It asks us to examine the places where we protect ourselves from pain without holding parts of ourselves from others, right? It's not easy. Because at the core, this transit is asking you what you're afraid of. What are you afraid is going to happen if you allow yourself to completely trust? Completely. And for a lot of you, this transit may uncover emotional patterns that have been operating very quietly in your background for years. You may start recognizing fears around relying on others or receiving support or sharing resources or allowing people to see the parts of yourself that feel imperfect and wounded or uncertain. Now, because Chiron is moving through Taurus, the healing is not purely emotional, it's profoundly physical as well. Taurus governs the body's relationship with safety. Now, keep in mind that as a Libra rising, your chart is flipped. So your Taurus energy is in the 8th house. Taurus lives in the 2nd house, which is the opposite house. And there's this natural tension there, right? And so it's that how this is really going to be playing out with Chiron there is that there is going to be such a deep connection between your emotional body and the whole somatic interpretation, right? The mind-body connection. Because obviously Taurus governs the body's relationship with safety and regulation and nourishment and stability, the nervous system, digestion, hormones, metabolism. And keep in mind, Chiron's going to be opposing that 2nd house. The throat, the senses, the body's stress response may all become very important messengers through this transit. And one of the fascinating aspects of Chiron and Taurus is that it often reveals how emotional wounds are stored physically, and especially with this placement. So a lot of you can discover that anxiety about finances and relationships and trust or uncertainty manifests in the body through tension, through stomach issues, digestion issues, sleep disruptions, just feeling very fatigued, hormonal fluctuations, just nervous system overload. Right. And so your body may become this guide helping you to identify emotional patterns that your conscious mind have been overlooking. It's just you haven't realized it. Now, the direct phase from June 19th to August 3rd can bring situations that really highlight issues involving trust and intimacy and shared finances and investments, inheritance, taxes, debt, or even just emotional vulnerability. For some of you, these themes come up through relationship. For others of you, it could happen just through your own internal reflection. It doesn't necessarily indicate crisis. Typically, it'll be revealed in an area where healing is just ready to begin. When you're going to know it. Is it in that relationship having to do with shared resources, emotional entanglements, intimacy, whatever it is, it'll show itself. At the beginning of the transit, Chiron does form a supportive sextile to the North Node in Pisces in your sixth, while trining the South Node of Virgo in your 12th. So this suggests that healing can come through daily practices, self-care, health improvements, therapy, spiritual practices, a willingness to release unconscious patterns that have been operating behind the scenes. Now, that South Node in Virgo in the 12th may help you release these old tendency towards worry and hypervigilance and overanalysis and just carrying burdens that were never yours to carry in the first place, right? Well, that North Node in Pisces is encouraging greater compassion and trust and surrender and faith in the healing process, right? And then the node shifts in mid-July to Leo and Aquarius. And here, Chiron starts supporting that North Node in Aquarius in your fifth house while trining the South Node in Leo in your 11th. So the focus now moves toward joy, creativity, children, romance, self-expression, the ability to open your heart, vacations, maybe even fifth house, willing to take a chance on something, having your own business, hobbies, doing things that you love that just bring you joy. And this is a beautiful shift because it does tell me that a deeper healing may ultimately lead to greater freedom. As old fears begin to loosen their grip, you may find it easier to do fifth house things, create, love, express yourself, experience genuine pleasure without constantly anticipating disappointment. If you've been trying to conceive and there's been a block, this can lift that block, okay? Now, throughout this entire preview period, Chiron does square Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in your fifth house. So this is where a lot of the psychological transformation is going down for you guys. So because Pluto is really reshaping your relationship with creativity and romance and self-expression and children and your personal joy and having your own business, right? A lot of you may become aware of power dynamics within romantic relationships. Others of you can confront fears about rejection and visibility and creativity and being emotionally exposed. But again, all these things are coming up for you to look at. Now, that Chiron Pluto square is asking you a super important question. Have you learned to protect yourself so thoroughly that you've actually limited your capacity for joy at this point, for actual happiness? But for a lot of you, this may reveal itself through your romantic relationships. For others of you, through your creative work or your parenting experiences or situations that require emotional openness. Now, when Chiron stations retrograde on the 3rd, that healing process, again, goes very internal. So old memories involving trust and intimacy and betrayal and loss or emotional vulnerability rise to the surface. And this period is less about, though, external events. It's just more about understanding, just understanding the emotional roots beneath it all. Now, you may be seeing where certain fears originated and how those fears have shaped your decisions in life for years and years. You might also discover that some emotional defenses that once protected you are no longer necessary, which would mean that you're trusting a little bit more easily. Now, because this is only a preview of the longer Chiron and Taurus transit, which starts April 14th of 2027, pay close attention to what comes up this summer. Just notice what situations trigger your fear or discomfort around trust. Notice what your body does when you feel emotionally unsafe. Notice where you're being invited to soften up, to receive support, and just allow greater intimacy into your life. And the deepest lesson for you guys may be that vulnerability is not a weakness, it's courage. This transit begins teaching you that true security doesn't come from controlling every outcome or protecting yourself from every possible disappointment. It comes from developing enough trust in yourself that you can just stay open even when life feels really uncertain. Now, over the coming years, Chiron will gradually help you transform the fears that you're likely feeling right now into trust and self-protection, into connection and survival, into genuine emotional intimacy. So this summer is simply your first glimpse of a profound healing journey, and it's very connected to the idea of safety and trust. I hope this was helpful, my friends. See you next time. Add Scorpio rising to a lesser degree, sun and moon. Watch all three if you can. For you guys, this is happening in your 7th house. From June 19th to September 17th, you're going to get a preview of the beginning of what's going to be a very long healing journey connected to relationships, marriage, any kind of committed partnership. So it doesn't have to be an intimate. It could be a client, contracts, your boss, your bosses, a best friend, anyone that you have like a soul, a shared soul connection with. So just people who mirror you most directly. Now, Chiron in the 7th means that the wound and the healing are likely going to be showing itself through all of your one-on-one connections. So he's been in Aries since 2018, moving through your 6th house of work, of health, daily routines, service, stress, responsibility. So a lot of you have spent the past several years healing your relationship with productivity, right? And your ability to work and be productive in the way that maybe you once did, or that you would have ideally have liked to have been. For some of you, for others of you, you were healing burnout, dealing with health situations, right? Battling physical wellness, habits, and just the pressure to keep functioning even when you're exhausted, right? Now the focus shifts from how you manage your daily life to how you relate to others. So psychologically, Chiron in the 7th often reveals wounds around relationship situations like trust and rejection and abandonment and betrayal and compromise and feeling valued or not in a relationship. This does not mean relationships are doomed or that something negative is going to happen. Okay. It does not mean that. Okay. But it does mean that relationships become a mirror, as the 7th house always does. We call it the house of mirrors, right? They show us here where your heart is still guarded, where expectations may be shaped by old pain and past experiences, or where you may unconsciously anticipate disappointment before it even arrives. At its core, this transit is asking you if you could feel safe being fully yourself with another person, right? No bars held, right? And because Chiron is moving through Taurus, this is also strongly connected to the body for you, especially because you guys are your ascendant descendant, right? You and Taurus from each other, right? So you guys sit in this natural tension to each other. And Taurus does rule the nervous system, as I mentioned before, and digestion and hormones and metabolism and the throat and the senses and the way the body stores stress. So for a lot of you, relationship dynamics may be felt very physically during this transit, right? So you might notice how certain conversations or conflicts or silences or emotional uncertainties end up affecting your body, right? Where your stomach might tighten, your throat might close, the nervous system can become activated. So the body may show you very clearly where trust feels easy and where it doesn't, okay? Pay attention to all of that this summer. Now, the direct phase from June 19th to August 3rd can bring relationship patterns to the surface. You can become a lot more aware of whether your relationships feel balanced and safe and mutual and emotionally nourishing, right? Some of you may be healing old partnership wounds. Others might be renegotiating boundaries or expectations, or just the way that you give and receive love. Now, at the start of the transit, Chiron does form a very supportive sextile to the North Node in Pisces in your 5th house, while trining the South Node in Virgo in your 11th. So this tells me that healing is likely going to come through fifth house things like joy and children and romance and creativity and play and allowing your heart to soften. You may be releasing old social expectations, or which is very 11th house, group pressures, or the need to fit into circles that just don't truly nourish you. A lot of you may also be looking at your goals and gains. You may be reevaluating, am I going to have enough money for the future? Really looking very hard at the next 10 to 15 years of your life and making some tweaks to those plans. Now, when the nodes shift into Aquarius and Leo in the middle of July next month, Chiron starts supporting that North Node in Aquarius in your fourth house, while trining the South Node in Leo in your 10th house. So the healing then moves even deeper into home and family and roots and emotional safety and your private life. So relationship wounds may connect back to family patterns, childhood experiences, or just early models of love and security that were shown to you as blueprints. Now, throughout this entire preview period, Chiron squares Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in your fourth house. So very deep psychological pressure point, right? Because Pluto is transforming that fourth house for you. For a lot of you, literally moving, others of you, your emotional foundation. So it could bring up issues connected to family, home, property, real estate, ancestry, attachment patterns, control, privacy, places where you learned what safety was supposed to feel like. And for a lot of you, this can be very profound because that seventh house relationship story is directly tied to the fourth house emotional root story here. And with this Chiron and Pluto, Chiron squaring Pluto energy is really asking if your current relationship patterns are being shaped by old emotional survival strategies. Are you connected to these relationships for the right reasons? Because you might realize that certain reactions in partnership are not only about the present moment, they can be connected to older experiences of not feeling safe or protected or chosen or understood. Now, this can be tender, but it can also be liberating because once you see the pattern, you're no longer unconsciously controlled by it. Now, when Chiron stations retrograde on the 3rd, the healing becomes a lot more internal. So this could bring a lot of reflection around past relationships and marriage patterns and old disappointments and client dynamics or unresolved emotional wounds connected to trust. So you could start recognizing what you project onto others and what others wake up in you. Again, that idea of mirroring. Now, the retrograde phase is not about blaming yourself or anyone else. I just want to be super clear with that, okay? It's just about understanding emotional imprinting. Why do certain dynamics feel familiar, right? We just get a sense that someone is cut from the same fabric as us, or there's a sense of familiarity. Why do certain behaviors trigger such a strong response? Where have you been protecting yourself from intimacy because vulnerability once felt unsafe and you're remembering that? But it's got to be like this realization that you're not allowing yourself to be your absolute authentic self. And I'm not saying with everyone, I'm saying that whoever or whatever is fitting into that seventh house experience. Now, this is only a preview, right? You don't have to figure it all out this summer. It's only the preview of this energy, right? Once April mid-April of next year starts, and we're going to talk about this differently. But for the summer, just pay close attention to what comes up, what emerges. Notice which relationships regulate your nervous system and which ones disturb it, right? Because you might feel super comfortable with your friends or a family member, but then when you're with that other person, it's something is not jiving the way that it should, right? Notice where you feel valued and where you feel unseen, and be willing to say that out loud, and pay attention to where your body reacts before your mind fully understands why. Now, the deepest lesson for you guys is that real intimacy requires both trust in another person and trust in yourself, right? And being comfortable to have that. This Chiron in Taurus begins teaching you that you can be deeply connected without losing your grounding, your voice, or your sense of worth. The healing, it's not about becoming less sensitive. It's not. It's about becoming safer within yourself so that love, partnership, and connection no longer feel like a threat to your stability. Okay, my friend? So that is what I have for you. I hope this was helpful. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Hi, Sagittarius Rising, to a lesser degree, Sun and Moon. I always say listen to all three. But for you guys, Chiron and Taurus is hitting your 6th house from June 19th to September 17th. And again, this is just a little bit of a preview of this healing journey. That's going to be very centered around your health, your daily routines, your work, service, productivity, your habits, your relationship with the physical body. What else is 6th house? Our fur babies, all of our domestic pets are there as well. Now, Chiron moving into that 6th house brings attention to the systems and patterns that support your everyday life, because that's what that 6th house energy is. And since 2018, Chiron in Aries been moving through your 5th house of creativity, of children, of romance, joy, self-expression, personal fulfillment. And a lot of you have spent the past 8 years healing wounds connected to being seen, expressing yourself authentically, taking creative risks, opening your heart, and allowing yourself to really experience joy without guilt, right? And now the focus shifts from self-expression to self-maintenance. So psychologically, Chiron in the 6th often reveals wounds connected to productivity, usefulness, responsibility, perfectionism, and the belief that our worth is somehow tied to what we accomplish. So a lot of you can start recognizing where you've been pushing yourself too hard, ignoring your body's signals, or measuring your value by how much you can do for others, or being recognized in your job, being recognized for more of performative things, right? Because at the core, this transit is asking you if you believe, do you believe that you deserve care, even when you're not giving and producing or performing or helping someone else? Right? Because Chiron moving through Taurus, this transit is especially connected to the physical body. And in the 6th house, dealing with the health, right? Taurus governs that nervous system. 6th house also is very connected to the gastro system, and Taurus governs digestion and metabolism and hormones and the throat and the senses and the body's overall ability to regulate and maintain balance. This is one of the signs most closely associated with embodiment and nourishment and physical well-being. So you're going to become a lot more aware of the relationship between emotional stress and physical symptoms, long-term anxiety, overcommitment, unresolved grief, chronic pressure, or unexpressed emotions may show themselves through your body. Digestive issues, sleep disturbances, feeling super tired, like a fatigue, bone tired kind of thing, nervous system sensitivities, hormonal imbalances, muscle tension, stress-related health concerns can serve as messengers rather than problems to simply eliminate, right? What is the deeper message under it? Because the body may be asking for attention in ways that it hadn't before. And so one of the major themes of this transit is learning to listen. Sag energy often focuses on the future, that next thing, the next adventure, the next goal, the next possibility. You guys are always go. Chiron and Taurus is saying, slow down and pay attention to what's happening right now. It's asking you to reconnect with your body and your rhythms and your actual needs, rather than constantly focusing on what's next. Now, during the direct phase from June 19th to August 3rd, circumstances can draw attention to 6th house environments, like work environments, or draw attention to schedules or health habits. Could also be connected to paperwork for some sort of project, responsibilities, or areas where imbalance has developed over time, right? So a lot of you can feel called to improve your routine, your exercise routine, the way you eat or the way you run your day. You might adjust your workload. You might change your health practice or rethink how you manage your energy, just in general. Now, at the start of the transit, Chiron forms a supportive sextile to the North Node of Pisces in your 4th, while trining the South Node of Virgo in your 10th. So this tells me that healing is likely going to come through creating greater emotional safety and balance in your private life, right? In that home life. Now, the South Node of Virgo in your 10th may be helping you to release old definitions of success that require constant striving and achievement and perfection. Meanwhile, that North Node in Pisces is really trying to get you to rest. It's encouraging nourishment, spiritual connection, and a stronger relationship with your home and with family. This is a powerful reminder that your value is not determined solely by what it is that you do, your accomplishments, right? Now, when the nodes shift the next month, the second or third week, into Aquarius and Leo in mid-July, Chiron starts supporting the North Node in Aquarius in your third house, while trining the South Node in Leo in your ninth house. So the healing now expands into communication, learning, mindset, daily interactions, the stories that you tell yourself. What else do we have? Negotiation, launching something, getting something out there to the world. The ninth house is also very connected to marketing, advertising, publishing, getting something got done, right? So you may begin recognizing how certain thought patterns, really looking at the stories that you tell yourself about these things and looking at these thought patterns and how they could affect your physical well-being. The way you speak to yourself, Sag, really matters. The belief that you carry about work and about responsibility and health and yourself, especially your self-worth, is all matters. So Chiron can show where self-criticism has quietly become a source of stress. Now, throughout this entire preview period, Chiron is going to be squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in your third house. So this is where much of the deeper psychological work takes place. And Pluto is transforming your mind, your communication style, your beliefs, and the way that you process information. So some of you may become aware of deeply ingrained mental patterns that contribute to stress, anxiety, overthinking. Others of you may experience important conversations that challenge very long-held assumptions about what it is that you believe. Now, that Chiron-Pluto square is asking you if your thoughts are supporting your healing or are they contributing to your suffering. And being super open and honest with yourself about that, you may discover that some of the pressure you feel physically is connected to internal expectations and unconscious fears or narratives that just no longer serve you. Now, when Chiron stations retrograde on August 3rd, the healing becomes more internal. So old patterns always come up when we're dealing with this. So involving work and health and self-care and productivity and self-worth just may become a lot more visible to you. So you may begin understanding where certain habits originated and why it's been just so difficult for you to change, right? Certain habits. Now, this retrograde period is more encouraging, right? Encourages observation rather than judgment, right? The goal here is not perfection, guys. It's just awareness right now. And because this is only a preview of the longer Chiron and Taurus transit, which is going to be starting in mid-April of next year, pay close attention to the themes that come up this summer. Notice what your body is trying to tell you, where stress accumulates. Notice what environments support your nervous system and which ones deplete it. And notice how your daily choices affect your overall sense of well-being. The deepest lesson for you guys in this transit may be that healing is found in not so much in constantly moving and moving forward. Sometimes healing is found in just slowing down to hear what your body's been saying to you all along. It starts to teach you that health is not merely the absence of illness. It's the presence of safety and balance and nourishment and a daily life that supports both your body as well as your spirit. So I hope that was helpful in some way. Thanks for hanging out with me, Sag. You guys take care. See you next time. Bye-bye. Capricorn Rising, for you guys, this is happening in the 5th house. So from June 19th to September 17th, that's when we're getting this preview. So for us, this is starting a healing journey connected to our happiness and creativity and self-expression, romance, children, pleasure, passion. the ability to fully engage with life from the heart. Chiron moving into the fifth brings attention to one of the most personal and emotional, vulnerable areas of the chart. And since 2018, Chiron's been moving through our fourth house of home, family, roots, emotional security, ancestry, psychological foundation. So a lot of us have spent the past 8 years healing family wounds, redefining what home means, examining childhood conditioning, and confronting emotional patterns that originated in early life. There's been a deep process of learning what true emotional safety looks like, right? And now the focus is going to be shifting from healing the roots to now healing the heart. So psychologically, Chiron in the fifth often shows us wounds around being seen, expressing yourself authentically, receiving love, taking risks, creating something meaningful, and allowing yourself to experience joy without guilt. You know, some of you may discover that you've become so focused on responsibility and achievement or survival that you've gradually disconnected from pleasure and spontaneity and joy. So, at its core, this transit is asking you if you allow yourself to enjoy life. And the question sounds very simple, but a lot of Cap risings, me being one of them, this can be surprisingly profound, right? Now, the fifth house governs the part of us that creates simply because it wants to create, right? And it loves simply because it wants to love and it just enjoys it, right? Expressing ourselves just to feel alive, right? Now, Chiron going to this house can show us places where self-consciousness, criticism, fear of judgment, rejection, disappointment, or failure have limited your willingness to fully express who you are. And because Chiron's moving through that Taurus energy, this healing process is deeply connected to the body. Because Taurus, as I mentioned before, Taurus governs the nervous system and digestion and metabolism and hormonal balance in the throat and the senses and the body's ability to experience pleasure and relaxation and safety. So, you know, a lot of you may discover that joy itself has become a healing modality, right? Just allowing yourself to have fun. So you might begin noticing how often your body remains in this state of vigilance where you haven't even recognized it, right? The state of vigilance, the state of responsibility, the state of preparation, right? And with Chiron in there, you're being asked to pay attention to what helps your nervous system relax. Creativity, music, art, gardening, cooking, romance, nature, physical touch, beauty, sensory experiences can all become important pathways towards healing. Now, I know this is still a work thing. We're talking about obviously trying to enjoy, but fifth house is also entrepreneurial efforts, monetizable hobbies, things that you love to do, right? So that's there as well. But this transit is going to be teaching that pleasure is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And it's something that I don't think we do enough. Right. So during the direct phase from the 19th of June to August 3rd, circumstances can draw attention to romantic relationships or some sort of creative project that you're working on or something connected to your children or hobbies, again, passions, areas where you've stopped giving yourself permission to shine can absolutely come up. So some of you may feel called back toward talents or interests that you gave up a very long time ago, while others of you may become aware of fears surrounding visibility and vulnerability or self-expression, right? Now, at the beginning of the transit, Chiron forms a supportive sextile to the North Node in Pisces in the third, while trining the South Node of Virgo in the ninth. So this tells me that there's healing coming through communication, writing, learning, teaching, conversations, and allowing yourself to speak just more openly from the heart. And that South Node in Virgo in the ninth can be helping you to release these rigid beliefs and just excessive self-analysis or the need to always have everything figured out. Now, that North Node in Pisces in the third encourages softer communication, greater intuition, curiosity, creativity, trusting in your own voice, right? You can discover here that expressing your feelings is far more healing than intellectualizing them. there's value in intellectualizing them, but there's more value in this energy by just expressing them, right? And when the node shift then into Aquarius and Leo in mid-July, Chiron is going to start supporting that north node in Aquarius in your second house while trining that south node in Leo in your eighth. And this is a really important shift because it links creativity and joy directly to self-worth. So you may begin realizing that your ability to express yourself authentically is connected to how much you value yourself. Healing can involve releasing fears around dependence and approval and emotional entanglement or just seeking validation from others. The more secure you become within yourself, the easier it becomes to create, to love, to express yourself more freely. So at this entire period, Chiron squaring that Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in your second house. And that's where the deep psychological transformation is unfolding in your chart, because Pluto is transforming your relationship with money, self-worth, security, personal resources. So some of you may become aware of longstanding fears around scarcity and being inadequate and financial security or not feeling good enough. A lot of you will be realizing that. Others of you may recognize that you've tied your value too closely to productivity or to status or achievement or some sort of external accomplishment. Now, this Chiron Pluto square is asking a very powerful question. What if your worth and who you are as a person has nothing to do with what you accomplish? This can be one of the most important lessons of the entire transit for you guys, because you can discover that your hesitation to create and love and take risks or pursue joy is really rooted in deeper concerns about value and do you deserve it? That idea of deservingness, right? Because Chiron here begins exposing those beliefs that can be healed. And when Chiron stations retrograde on August 3rd, the healing process becomes, of course, a lot more internal. So old experiences involving those things, rejection, embarrassment, criticism, heartbreak, creative disappointment, or just feeling unseen, all these things could rise to the surface. And you might begin recognizing where certain fears originated and how they've influenced your ability to fully participate in life. Because it's part of yourself that you've been holding back, right? Now, the retrograde period is not asking you to become fearless. It's not like suddenly you're going to wake up and you're going to be like, "Dun, dun, dun, I'm ready to like attack." It's just asking you to become more compassionate towards the parts of yourself that learn to protect your heart, right? And where are you so protective? It's become more compassionate to that. And again, this is only a preview of this longer transit, which starts the middle of April of next year. But you do want to pay attention to what's going to be popping up, right? So that's what's going to be showing up this summer. Pay attention to what brings genuine joy, like real joy. And it's so subjective, right? Notice where you've been holding yourself back. Notice what your body responds to positively, where creativity and pleasure and self-worth kind of intersect. Pay attention to all these things this summer. The deeper lesson here is that healing doesn't always happen through hard work. It just doesn't. We don't have to figure everything out. Sometimes healing happens through happiness and enjoying yourself, right? So your Chiron in Taurus begins teaching you that joy is not something that has to be earned after all the work is done. Happiness is part of what makes the work and life itself meaningful. So over these coming years, you're going to discover that the heart is not a distraction from your purpose. It's an essential part of it, and we can't separate the two. Okay, my friends, that is what I have for you. I'll see you guys next time. Hi, Aquarius Rising. So for you guys, Chiron and Taurus is happening in your fourth house. And this preview period, again, is June 19th to September 17th. And this is going to be beginning this very deeply personal healing journey connected to fourth house things. That will be family and home and roots and emotional security and ancestry and childhood conditioning and the foundation upon which your life is built. So Chiron moving into that fourth one of the more private and psychologically significant areas of your chart is what's going to be explored. Now, since 2018, Chiron in Aries has been moving through your third house of communication, learning, siblings, your mindset, your daily interactions. And a lot of you have spent the past 8 years healing wounds connected with your voice, your mind, your confidence in expressing yourself, your ability to trust your own thoughts and perceptions. You may have learned important lessons about speaking your truth, communicating your needs, and even allowing your perspectives to be heard, right? But now the focus shifts from the mind now to the heart, fourth house, the moon ruled house. So psychologically, Chiron in the fourth often brings awareness to emotional patterns that were formed very early in life. So this transit asks us to examine where we first learned about safety and trust and belonging and love and vulnerability and emotional support. Some of you may find yourselves reflecting on childhood experiences, family relationships, ancestral influences, or emotional dynamics that have quietly shaped your life for decades. At its core, at the very central focus, you're being asked what safety actually feels like to you. And that question may sound simple, but with Chiron in the fourth, this can reveal that many of us have been confusing familiarity with safety. Sometimes we repeat emotional patterns not because they're healthy, but because they're familiar, right? What's that old saying? Better to dance with the devil that I know than the devil that I don't know, right? And because Chiron is moving through Taurus, this healing process is deeply connected to the physical body. Now, Taurus does govern the nervous system, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, as well as digestion and metabolism and hormonal balance, the throat, the senses, and the body's ability to relax and regulate itself. Now, the fourth house governs our emotional foundation. So putting these together, these themes suggest that emotional healing and physical healing will become closely intertwined. So a lot of you may discover that old emotional stress has been stored in the body for years, and the nervous system may reveal where hypervigilance has become normalized. Digestive issues, fatigue, sleep disturbances, muscle tension, anxiety, or chronic stress responses can really show you some important clues about emotional patterns that are ready to be healed. Now, this transit invites you to listen very carefully to what your body considers safe and what it considers to be threatening. Now, the direct phase from June 19th to August 3rd can bring situations involving family and home, property, living arrangements, situations with parents, caregiving responsibilities, or emotional security to the forefront. So some of you may feel called to create a more supportive living environment, or you may become aware of family patterns that just no longer serve you. This is not necessarily about blaming the past. It's not. It's about understanding it, okay? Now, at the beginning of the transit, Chiron does form a supportive sextile to the North Node in Pisces in your second, while trining the South Node in Virgo in your eighth house. Healing can come through strengthening your sense of self and your personal security. That South Node in Virgo in the eighth may be helping you release patterns of overthinking, emotional complexities, thinking anything having to do with shared experiences, carrying other people's burdens, just feeling responsible for fixing everybody else's problems, right? And that North Node in Pisces in your second encourages you to develop greater trust in yourself, your values, your intuition, and your ability to create stability from within. So healing begins when you stop looking outside of yourself for safety and you start learning to build more internally. Now, when the nodes shift into Aquarius and Leo in the middle of next month, middle of July, Chiron starts supporting that North Node in Aquarius in your first house while trining the South Node in Leo in your seventh. Very powerful turning point here, as the healing now becomes directly connected to your identity, right? It's as you heal these old family patterns, your sense of self begins to change. right? You may find yourself becoming more authentic, more independent, less willing to define yourself through other people's expectations. And it's really pumping up that Uranus in there, right? That Uranus in Gemini, right? Really getting you to make some shifts in there, right? And of course, Pluto being in your own energy there. And then that South Node in the seventh can help you release relationship patterns based on approval seeking or over accommodating or sacrificing too much of yourself just to keep the peace, right? But that North Node in Aquarius is asking you to become just more fully yourself. Throughout this entire preview period, Chiron is squaring that Pluto retrograde in your sign, in your first house. So obviously, this is one of the most psychologically profound aspects of the entire transit for you with Pluto in your first. He's already in there transforming your identity, your self-image, your appearance, your priorities, the way you move through the world, right? You're not the same person you were a few years ago, and you may not fully recognize the person that you're becoming just yet, right? It's a weird energy space of energy that we're in right now. But the square between Chiron and Pluto suggests that part of this identity transformation is directly connected to old emotional foundations, right? Really thinking about who you are when you're no longer reacting to old wounds. Who are you when you stop carrying family expectations that were never really yours? Who are you when you create safety from within instead of searching for it outside of yourself, right? And these are just some things to think about, and they become increasingly more important as this transit unfolds, right? Now, when current stations retrograde on August 3rd, the healing process becomes more internal. So, old memories, family stories, childhood experiences, emotional reactions, and unconscious patterns can come up to the surface just for reflection. So, you may begin recognizing connections between your present day behaviors and your experiences from a long time ago, right? So, that retrograde period is less about changing external circumstances and more about understanding the emotional roots beneath them. So this could be very healing, a very beautiful healing period if approached with compassion and curiosity. Now, because this is only a preview of that longer Chiron and Taurus transit that starts the middle of April next year, pay very close attention to what shows up this summer. Notice what makes you feel emotionally safe. Pay attention to where your nervous system feels relaxed and when it feels activated. Notice what family patterns you are so ready to release and what new foundations are ready to be built, right? Because the deeper lesson here for you guys is that true freedom is not found by escaping your emotions. It's not. It's found by understanding them. Then Chiron and Taurus begins teaching you that healing isn't about changing your past. It's about creating a relationship with yourself that's secure enough, grounded enough, and compassionate enough to hold whatever the past has left behind for you. Okay, my friends, that is what I have for you. I hope this was helpful in some way. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Pisces rising to a lesser degree, sun and moon, watch all three if you have the time. But Chiron is going into Taurus in your third house, and this preview period is from June 19th to September 17th. So for you guys, this begins a healing journey connected to third house matters, which would be communication, learning, self-expression, your mindset, siblings, extended family, your neighbors, your neighborhood, early education, daily interactions, and the stories that you tell yourself about who you are. Now, Chiron going into your third house brings a lot of attention to your voice, not just the voice that you use when speaking to other people, but the voice that speaks within your own mind every day. Okay. Now, since 2018, Chiron and Aries has been moving through your second house of self-worth, money, values, security, your personal resources. So a lot of you have spent the past 8 years healing wounds connected to confidence and financial stability and deservedness and learning that your value is not determined by what you own or earn or produce, right? There's been this ongoing process of rebuilding your relationship with self-worth from the inside out. And now the focus shifts, though, from what you value to how you think, right? And psychologically, Chiron in the third often shows us wounds connected to those areas: communication, being heard, being understood, learning, education. I said that already. Speaking up, expressing your opinions, and trusting your own perceptions of reality. Some of you may discover old fears around saying the wrong thing, or being judged, or sounding unintelligent, or being misunderstood, or having your voice dismissed. Others of you may become aware of something even deeper: the way you speak to yourself. Really looking at what is the quality of your inner dialogue, Pisces. Was your mind a place of support for you, or is it a place of criticism? Do you trust yourself? Do you trust your own voice? So a lot of you, this becomes one of the most significant healing themes of the transit. And because Chiron is moving through Taurus, the healing process is deeply connected to the body as well as the mind, of course, as it's Taurus, which governs the nervous system and digestion and hormones, metabolism, and the throat and the senses and the body's ability to regulate stress. The third house governs thinking and communicating. So putting these together, this tells me that your thoughts may have a direct impact on your physical well-being. For a lot of you may begin to notice how anxiety and worry and self-criticism and information overload, or just even mental overstimulation, affect the nervous system. So you may discover that certain thought patterns create tension in your body, while others create a sense of calm and grounding. Now, this transit can teach that the mind and body are not separate systems, right? It can teach you that. They are in constant conversation with one another, right? Constant. Now, the direct phase from June 19th to August 3rd can bring situations that highlight communication patterns and learning experiences and conversations and writing projects and teaching opportunities and what else? Sibling relationships, neighborhood connections, or everyday interactions. Some of you may feel called to share your ideas a lot more openly, right? Others may become aware of where you've been just really silencing yourself. So you may also find yourself questioning longstanding beliefs about your intelligence and your abilities, or your capacity to communicate effectively. Now, at the start of the transit, Chiron forms a supportive sextile to the North Node in Pisces in your first house, while trining the South Node in Virgo in your seventh house. And this is a powerful configuration because it links healing directly to your personal growth and identity. Now, that North Node in your first is encouraging you to become more fully yourself, trust your instincts, move confidently in the direction of your own development. Meanwhile, that South Node in Virgo in the seventh can be helping you release relationship patterns that have caused you to doubt yourself. Your tendency to over accommodate others, you just rely too heavily on any kind of external validation. You're learning to trust your own voice rather than constantly seeking confirmation from everyone around you, right? But then the nodes are going to shift the middle of next month, the middle of July, and there Chiron starts supporting the North Node in Aquarius in your 12th house, while trining the South Node in Leo in your 6th. And now the healing moves into even deeper territory there, right? Is that North Node in Aquarius in the 12th is really going to be encouraging your spiritual growth, your inner freedom, your intuition, healing, and connection to something larger than yourself. That South Node in Leo is maybe helping you to release old habits of overworking, or at least reframe them, overperforming, or defining your worth through constant productivity. It could also have you, what else? Changing your reframing how you take care of your body, how you work out, or what you eat, what you do. Now, as the summer unfolds, you may discover that healing your mind requires periods of silence and reflection and meditation and prayer and creativity, or just simply stepping away from the noise and the distraction, right? You need to do that. But throughout this entire preview, Chiron is squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius in your 12th house. And that's where a lot of the deep psychological work is going down. Because that Pluto in the 12th is already transforming your unconscious mind, bringing hidden fears, buried emotions, old grief, unresolved experiences, and subconscious patterns into awareness. And Chiron in the third now shines a light on how those unconscious patterns influence your thinking. And this Chiron Pluto square is asking some questions and they want some answers. What stories are you carrying around that just no longer even belong to you? Having to do with your life, other people, which fears are truly yours and which ones have been inherited from your family or your culture or your past experience or your old conditioning. And what would happen if you stop believing every fearful thought that your mind produced? This could be so liberating, right? So liberating. And you can discover that some of your most limiting beliefs are not objective truths at all. They're just not. They're simply old survival mechanisms that have outlived their usefulness. So when Chiron stations retrograde on August 3rd, this healing process becomes very internal. So old memories involving school and childhood experiences and siblings and communication and criticism and learning difficulties or feeling misunderstood can come up to the surface. And you can begin recognizing how certain experiences have shaped your inner dialogue and influenced the way that you communicate today. And the retrograde phase asks for awareness, not judgment, just awareness. This is not about criticizing yourself for old patterns. It's about understanding them with compassion. And because this preview of that longer Chiron Taurus transit, which again is going to be beginning full throttle, August 14th, I believe it is, of next year, not August, April 14th of next year, you just want to pay really close attention to what comes up this summer, how you speak to yourself. What kind of thoughts calm your nervous system? Which ones make you feel stressed out? And pay attention to where your voice feels very strong compared to where it feels hesitant. Again, just paying attention this summer, right? The deepest lesson for you guys is that healing begins with the stories that you tell yourself. Okay. And this is the beginning of a long journey of teaching you that your voice matters, your perspective matters, your thoughts have power. And over the coming years, this transit's going to help you develop a more grounded relationship with your own mind, with your own body, with your ability to express your truth. But most importantly, even moreover, it's going to teach you that the gentlest voice in your life should be the one that you use when you're speaking to yourself. And that's where the big change is going to be happening. So that is what I have for you, my friends. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Bye-bye.